Hi, everyone. It's Martha Novak, and this is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. We talk about all sorts of things related to consciousness. We're so glad you're with us today. We're here almost every Sunday at 10 o'clock. We are in Eastern Standard Time right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we are, I don't know when you'll be listening to the show because you can tune into our shows on Facebook Live and Blog Talk Radio and YouTube all the time. Listen to this as your schedule permits. However, in real time, we're heading into the holidays. And this coming Sunday is Christmas, and the following Sunday is New Year's. So the next 2 weeks I'll be off. I'll be back on January the 8th. Okay? Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. So I hope to see you then. We'll talk about a variety of things, as we always do. Anything from sex to age to religion to all sorts of things. All related to consciousness and spirituality, quite different from religion itself. I found an article that I just thought was wonderful. I agreed with some of it, didn't agree with a lot of it. I think some things, as is always the truth about religion and spirituality and what we talk about here, consciousness, is not well thought through. After all, we can only see what we can see, right? And if we're still trying to prove something, we sometimes put ideas out that are not fully formed because we haven't seen everything we're supposed to see. We don't know everything we're supposed to know. This article was the top 10 reasons I don't believe in God. It was by Greta Christina. And she makes some really good points. I thought that we ought to have a couple of shows addressing that. We talked about this last week. So if you did not see that show, let's see, that was around today is the 18th, 7 from 18, it was the 11th. Do look at December the 11th and start your sessions there. It won't hurt to listen to this one first, but I think it's fascinating. I think all this is fascinating to talk about because of what's happening in the world right now. I found another article, really interesting. A mass exodus from Christianity is underway in America. Here's why. And that one was by Suzette Lohmeyer and Anna Dean. Yes, I think so. You have to understand where I'm coming from here. I think everything is changing. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Let's do a prayer first. Helps me get on the same page with you. I am live today, and our guest calling number is 347-850-1647. I am delighted to try to bring you in. We do have slow speed up here, and this morning, as I was doing some work at my desk, oh Lord, was it slow. So I can only hope that you might be able to get in if you feel like calling. Now keep in mind that number I just gave you is going to get you on the air. So if you don't want to be on the air, you can access our show by going into my website, which is a really easy way, and going under radio shows and tapping either Blog Talk Radio or Facebook Live. Okay? All right, let's do a little prayer. It helps me get on the same page with you. Dear God of all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in the world, we thank you so much for the opportunity for all of us being together at this very special time in our calendar. We thank you so much for the coming together of like minds. We open ourselves to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment within us. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. We say now that we know nothing, for it is the you through us and through all things that know it all. And we also know that in this truth, all truth confirms itself. So that is the truth we seek today. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this and for our lives just as we know it. If we created this, we can create other things. Thank you so much for it all. And so it is. Amen. Okay. So here we are. Now, we went through 1 through 5 points last week. We are starting with number 6. Forgive me, I won't go back because there's a lot to say about this subject. I don't know whether some of you have read my book, The Life You Want. You can get that certainly on my website. There are 3 components to that book that I think are essential. One is, who the heck is God? You know, what is God? The second component is how to use this energy to manifest. And the third subject of this book, which is critical to exploring consciousness and consciousness deepening, is spiritual surrender. Quite a different thing than the ordinary surrenders. We have a lot of little surrenders we have throughout our lives. Nevertheless, that's not what we're talking about. The spiritual surrender, and I can only tell you in terms of what happened to me. First of all, I didn't anticipate it. Second of all, I had worked hard for this, but I didn't know what this was because I had been into this kind of work my whole life. I knew there was always something else. I was always drawn to it. I knew it wasn't in the box. I went on a search. I worked with people like me for years until I became one. And I think this book, while it's not a pleasant read, doesn't tell a story, okay? It is essential for knowing how all of this works. Now, what I want to say to you is if the things in that book haven't happened to you, they will. Just stand by. Just keep working, all right? It doesn't mean that you were standing behind the door when God gave out its beneficence. That's not what it means. It means keep going. You know, I'd get as tired as you. Yeah, sure I did. I'd doubt myself, absolutely. But you plow through and it's worth it in the end, because when the awakening, when the spiritual awakening actually occurs, the surrender, you're left with certain things. Absolutely knowing that God has always been with you and is with you now and always will be, and nothing can shake that from you. And the sure and certain knowledge that your life has been perfect, not ideal, but perfect, and there has not been one waste or one mistake in the whole thing. That it is a miraculous system of growth and change and opportunity. So, don't take my word for it. I think you can be interested, but you're going to have to prove it to yourself. Now, the interesting thing is, this article that I found, the one by Greta Christina, the top 10 reasons I don't believe in God, are really fascinating to me, because haven't we all been there where we're doubting everything and we don't see, and that is the truth of this article. She's got some really good points, so good for her. I do think she's trying to prove a lot of things that she's just blooming wrong about. And I think that none of us know until we see. But what rings true for you? You see, God is all you are. What confuses us in this world about God is we're looking for an old man on a throne instead of realizing it's energy. God is energy. In the Bible, it says, I am that I am, not I am who I am. You are the who of God. God is the energy. You see, we've got to learn to work with this energy. And people can deny God all they want, but if God is the energy, you can't damn well deny energy, because everything is energy, which ought to tell you one of the key aspects of God. Everything is God, because everything is energy. It's like when we are arguing about God, the light and the dark, we are not getting this. Like, as I said, asking a fish, how's the water? They don't know anything but the water. We don't know anything but this energy of God. And so how easy it is for us to say, God doesn't exist, when God is all around. But you've got to wake up to that. You've got to know that somewhere inside you. It's a really fascinating subject to me. So, guys, the world is changing. And this is one of the things I start out saying in The Life You Want, the book I just told you about. Because this is the age of individual consciousness. This is where the individual wakes up or does not. We're in that energy now. It's going to continue probably for the rest of my life, maybe beyond that. This is that time. We came out of a time where we believed in the company we worked for and that they would take care of us forever. That's blown out of the water. We've come out of a time where the church was everything. We're questioning that these days. We came out of a time where we trusted our government. Really? That's not true anymore. We came out of a time where there was a traditional family unit, but that's not true anymore. We are redefining roles. You know, it's not a patriarchal society anymore. It's not a matriarchal. I think we're going to some sort of equal balance, but we're all over the place right now because we're not there yet. You see? Everything's changing. And if you think, my darlings, that it's going to calm down at any point, it will not. It will not. Health and what we know about health and warfare and everything else is speeding up and going much faster and getting much more complicated. Where are the answers? Well, whenever I get distressed with the news, and from time to time that is true, being fully human, when I meditate on this or get upset about the world, God always speaks to me and says, honey, just do your job. Just do your job. Now, my job is twofold. So is yours. I do this and I coach and I write and I train people. Okay, so that's one of my tasks. But my biggest one is working on me. Working on me. I need to explore my potential before I can teach you anything about yours. Okay. That said, last thing I'll say is this. There are several things that are very confusing about this dear article that Greta Christina wrote. Number one, she's mixing up God and religion. And this is common in society, that people mix up God and religion. Religion is man-made. People with issues, just like you and me, created all religions. They are a dogma. That means they have limits. Okay? You go to certain religions because they do have those limits and they make you feel good while you're doing this. But while we grow to the point where we can enjoy all religions, saying, I believe that, I don't believe that, I believe that, I don't believe that, as you're sitting there enjoying it. The fact of the matter is, they work as ladders like the Bible does. There were things that confused me terribly when I was a kid about the Bible. I tended to discount the Bible because I didn't understand it. It's interesting because as I have grown, as my mind is open, as I have deepened and had more insights, I understand it. There are some things I discount. I think I mentioned last week the book of Job and the bookends of God and the devil bartering over, that was somebody's imagination. But the story of Job must not be lost in the middle because it's one of the most beautiful stories of surrender to God I've ever heard. Poor old Job was doing it the hard way, right? He finally gets it. Okay. The other thing that I want to put on the table here is something you do hear me say quite a lot, so just buckle yourself in and understand what I'm saying. The thing that people don't understand about God is since God is everything, God appears two ways. Here's the key phrase, according to our understanding. It's according to our understanding. God appears as the absence of itself according to our understanding, or the fullness of itself according to our understanding. Now this correlates with the ego child's mind, the part of us that is still a child inside and thinks like a child and has the issues that we had as a child, and the higher self mind that is more in keeping with who God really is as love and fullness and marvelous things. Okay, so you've got these two separate things about God that we have a hard time reconciling, and so we say God isn't there instead of saying everything is God, the light and the dark, the good and the bad, what we perceive, by the way, is good and bad, the rich and the poor, the everything and the everything. It's all God, either in its absence or in its fullness according to our understanding. Makes sense? I think it does. I think it does. But that's what most people miss about this. Most people miss this. They can't understand that, or it's never been presented to them. And that's what we're doing here when we talk about consciousness, because that's a conscious thought. That and the fact that there's no hierarchy here. The angels are not above you. They need you to work through. There are angels. There are all sorts of beings we cannot see. Okay, let's learn to work within this system of energy. After all, that's all you are, right? Okay, so that said, that's what people confuse about God. All right, so let's go to this article now, if that's all right with you all. And we are starting with her number 6. Keep in mind, these are the top 10 reasons she doesn't believe in God. I think it has not to do just with Greta Christina. I think this has to do with everything that people say. You know, here's something I want to put on the table. The word atheist and agnostic doesn't bother me at all. Because an atheist, for example, is just someone that believes in the lack of God, in the absence of God. That's all it is. Is it still God? It is. And somebody who really is, let's say, totally interested in consciousness and is there and is on her way or his way to being enlightened, that's all God. They just know more of it. But that God is here in all circumstances and in all ways and in the child's mind and the adult mind, yeah, I don't see any problem with that at all. And it's beyond some of the black and white thinking that we are seeing in this article. The black and white thinking, prove it to me or I don't believe in it. the closed mind, show me, show me, show me, but I have a closed mind, so how are you going to get to that? It's like trying to communicate with someone who does not speak the language in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not talking to those people necessarily unless they have an open mind about some things. I am talking to you all that may actually have a little bit of both in there so that your journey can be clearer for you as you listen to the inner that tells you to move and go and do and study and do the things that it's asking you to do. Number 6. The physical causes of everything we think of as soul. Now, these are the reasons she doesn't believe in God. Okay. She says it's actually why she doesn't see her title, the top 10 reasons I don't believe in God. And then she makes a case for not believing in religion. Okay. So she's mixing up these two things. They're different. God is energy. All right. And let's talk about what the soul is. All this is relative to what I believe and what I feel. But to me, the soul is you as energy in the aspect of God you are. That's the soul. The soul is the energy as the aspect of God you are. There we are. It's apart from the ego child's mind, the ego. It's apart from that. It's all part of one system. But when we're talking about the soul, we're talking about something different. And you know, one of the things, doing this for a living that I do, one of the things that annoys me is how everybody throws the word soul around. Oh, that hurt my soul. No, it's not going to hurt your soul. Sorry, no. May break your heart, not going to hurt your soul. Your soul's fine. It's out there. It's fine. Nobody can steal your soul. You haven't lost your soul along the way. You've lost your sense of self. Don't you get it? The soul is the part of God that nothing can do anything with. You have it. It's safe. The only thing is that you might not know about all of this and how to use the whole system. And that's what this show is about in all its different aspects, whether we're talking about sex or a relationship or making money or this. Okay? The physical causes of everything we think of as the soul. Well, that's kind of erroneous to begin with. All right. I just find that statement very confusing. You know, she's now getting soul. It sounds to me like she's getting soul mixed up with God and religion. And okay. Soul is the part of God, the ascended God that you are. It's part of the ascended God that you are. Why do I say the word ascended is so important? Because God's your ego child's mind as well. Kids, you see, we don't understand there are lots of degrees of God, you see? Yeah, there are low vibrational things. I don't believe in the devil, for example, not one bit. I think that our egos and our ego child's minds do a perfectly good job with that. And I think I think of Flip Wilson, because I grew up at that time. You all are probably too young for that, but he had a funny line, you know, the devil made me do it. And he'd say it with a real funny voice. He was a comedian. And there is no devil that made you do it. It's your child's mind. Unfortunately, so much of the world is being driven by these people that are still in the child's mind. And in the child's mind, you feel petty and revengeful and think you're right all the time. And a lot of other issues are connected with that in the soul. No, that's true. The soul is the pure aspect of you as the ascended God. What if we all start doing business and our families and our relationships, and from there. So this is what I think God says when God says, you just do your job, because that's what I'm supposed to be putting out there over and over again in various ways. Hi, sweetheart. I'm so glad to see you. Okay. So she goes on to say, and I want to address various points in here. So that's why I'm quoting Greta Christina. She says that neurology and neuropsychology are in their infancy, but they're advancing, and they find consistently across the board that whatever consciousness is, and she doesn't know, is inextricably linked to the brain. Well, yes, that's true, but I'm going to expand that. Yes, that is exactly what neuroscience says, and it's fascinating, and I just love hearing about it. However, the brain and the mind are different things, and the mind and the mind are different things, because you've got the ego child's mind in you, but you also have the ascended mind, the highest mind. These things are certainly in the brain, but they're also in every cell of your body. Because, why? Your energy. So we're all looking in the wrong place, and if science and spirituality, and it is beginning to actually come together. Hello, Michelle, you come on and join this video. I don't know what to do other than say, come on. Hello, Michelle. What we've got to realize is that science and spirituality, consciousness, go together. They aren't separate. And of course, there are marvelous books out there. One I just love, which is by Amit Goswami, called The Self-Aware Universe. Fascinating book. Now, that was an old book. There are many other more modern ones that are out there right now that are linking these two things, as they should be linked. This woman, I'm sorry to say, is not linking those things. She's making a case for what she believes or doesn't believe. And it just simply, in my opinion, God bless her, doesn't hold water, but that's where she is right now. She says, everything we think of as the soul, consciousness, identity, character, free will. Well, guys, I don't think of the soul as those things, but okay, she does. All of that is powerfully affected by physical changes to the brain and body. Changes in the brain result in changes in consciousness, sometimes so drastically they make a personality unrecognizable. Those things are true. The reason they can change is because that's not the energy quality, by the way, unchanging energy quality of the aspect of God in your potential. These things are not it. Now, she throws the word consciousness in there, and of course, that is what we're talking about here. But the way she says this is, I don't know what she means by that consciousness. What I mean by consciousness is knowing more about this energy tomorrow than you do today, and the next day than you do today, and a growth through your energy process, through your humanness to find your divinity. It's there. The interesting thing is your divinity is in your humanness, by the way. So if we're looking anywhere else but through the triad of awareness to consciousness to enlightenment, we're not going to see it. And it's clear in this article about God bless her that she's looking out there. She's looking out there. But the answers are not out there. The answers for you, for me, and for her are who God is in you. You're not looking out there. Not looking in the brain. They've tried to dissect the brain for all sorts of things. Ain't there. A brain just looks like another brain. Okay. So, guys, your identity is not consciousness. Your character is not consciousness. And free will, I don't have any idea. She's just throwing words around that are not consciousness. She says, oh, this was too good to pass up. illness, injury, drugs, medicine, sleep deprivation, all of these can make changes to the supposed soul, she says, both subtle and dramatic. Please. We're mixing up words. She's just having a word soup here. That doesn't make any sense at all. Your soul is not affected by anything. Your body is. Your brain is. But that's not the soul, and that's not the ascended mind. That's not any of this. This affords, guys, because there's something beyond all this, this affords us to change because it's all energy. So we change our minds, literally, we change our life. The problem is you have been indoctrinated by the beliefs in your early childhood home, the beliefs of society, the beliefs of your generations back that are not true. So a consciousness study is to go on a search for what's true for you. That's why when I see an article like this, I've got to support it because it's what's true for her. Good. Okay. I absolutely support that. I support whatever people are thinking at the time. But truth is relative until you get to an ultimate truth, a soul truth, a God truth. And that's what I said in our prayer. All ascended truth confirms itself. It is the lesser truths that contradict. You will find that out. But you have to be in that space before you know it. She goes on to say, and death, of course, is a physical change that renders a person's personality and character not only unrecognizable, but non-existent. I don't agree with that at all. You know, I have been lucky enough on this journey. Hello, Michelle, and hello, Jay. I'm so glad to see you all. Happy holidays, kids. You know, here we are. Yeah, at another one. I don't agree with that at all. First of all, call me crazy if you must, but I see energy. I've always seen energy. And I am very sensitive to people who have, who are just less dense molecules. And what I mean by that is if we're all energy, the energy is what goes on, kids. Yes, hello. Thank you, darling. That's wonderful. Yes, and I am grateful for all of you all, Jay. Thank you. Guys, the energy is what lifts up. Here's the interesting thing. Let me talk about this in terms of energy. You've got a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual body. Okay? You've got these bodies. The only reason I'm mentioning these is these are the ones I work with in my work. So you've got those. Well, what are they comprised of? Energy. That's what they're comprised of. So you've got a spiritual body that is all energy, but you've got these other bodies that are also energy. So the physical body dies, the soul body, the spiritual body, it goes on. I don't see how that is so complicated for people to understand. Not for you guys, but some people just can't get that it is energy that continues to live. It's amazing. It appears to us from time to time. It gives us messages. All sorts of things happen, you see. There's much more to this world than what people generally see. I will say that, you know, and I've said this before, that enlightenment, which is the advanced stages of consciousness, enlightenment is not the life that most people live. It's the life that most people miss. We're just not seeing it. So she goes on to say, and this is the very next paragraph, I love it. So the obvious conclusion guys, don't ever let words like that come out of my mouth, please, is that consciousness and identity, character, and free will are products of the brain and the body. Well, she's right in a way. Yeah, but there's a lot more, you see. They're biological processes governed by laws of physical cause and effect. With any other phenomenon, if you can show that physical forces and actions produce observable effects, we think of that as physical phenomenon. Why should the soul be any different? Because the soul isn't anything but energy, and this is a non-understanding of that kind of energy. Let me put it a different way. My husband was an executive vice president with, he's Austrian, with a company in Austria. It was Power Company, the big power company in Austria. But his understanding of energy and power is different from mine. His is based on physicality and just what she's talking about here. It's rooted in the physical world, cause and effect. Mine is quite different because the energy that I'm talking about can translate in as matter, but it also can translate into biology of some sort, and certainly spirituality. It's a very different form. So if you just say, I'm right, and this is the form I believe in, you're missing a lot. Why not? I don't ask anybody to believe what I'm putting forth. I'm asking you to be open to it and go on your own journey. This article, I don't know about the woman because I don't know her, but this article is not open. Right now, if she's in the space of this article, she won't ever see anything, but that's all right, isn't it? That may be her journey. I've always wanted to see more. Whether it was there or not, I wanted to know about it. I think that's why you listen to a show like this too, if I'm not mistaken. Although I don't want to come to an obvious conclusion. No, I certainly don't. I think those words are funny. So she goes on to say a great deal of science, early science, was dedicated to proving the soul's existence and discovering and exploring its nature. It wasn't until after decades upon decades of fruitless research in this area that science finally gave it up as a bad job and concluded almost unanimously, I don't know where she gets that, that the reason they hadn't found a soul was that there was no such thing. Well, obviously she's not reading the science that I'm reading. And this is what science has always done, particularly in archaic science or closed-minded science, and they're closed-minded scientists, just like they're open-minded scientists. But science all along has said if they don't understand something, they discount it as useless. Let's talk about the coccyx in your body, the tailbone. Let's talk about the appendix and the tonsils and the adenoids. Let's talk about all that we now know has something all to do in some miraculous way with the immune system, right? But at one point and another, and I think this was probably back in the 40s and 50s, I remember a time in the 50s where those things were, oh, you don't need those, let's just take everything out. They're useless. They don't do anything. They're vestiges of something. Really? Guys, you all be wary of that. If you don't understand something, be open to understanding it. Not saying it, it doesn't exist. It's not a real smart thing to do to me. And I think the only way consciousness is ever going to be explored in a serious way is for us to have open minds and not closed ones. She goes on. Oh, my word, she does go on. But think again about how the history of human knowledge is the history of supernatural explanations being replaced by natural ones with relentless consistency again and again and again. There hasn't been a single exception to this pattern. Why would we assume that the soul is going to be that exception? Why would we assume that this gap in our knowledge, alone among all the others, is eventually going to be filled with a supernatural explanation? The historical pattern doesn't support it, and the evidence doesn't support it. Now look, I said last week, I have a problem with everybody making supernatural assertions about things. I do have a problem with that. I do. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a real supernatural on the other side of all of our superstitions, kids. You know? I, for one, don't get involved with all this UFO thing. I believe there's probably some sort of belief. My belief is that I think we'd be very egotistical to think we're the only ones here. But call me when they get here. I got things to do, okay? So no problem with me keeping an open mind to that, but just call me when they get here. All this speculation and all this thing and the pictures on the internet, I don't have time for that. Just show me when they get here, okay? Give me definitive proof. I'll be the first one with a plate of cookies for them. Guys, we fantasize about God, about this energy, because we doubt it's there. We have magical thinking going on because we're afraid and insecure, and we hold on to things that will not sustain us when the crises happen. There is a supernatural presence on the other side of all this. Once you go into consciousness deeply and enlightenment, you find out that it's all true. But it's not fantasy. And you are left with an absolute knowing. Not just a believing, you see. There's a real difference between believing and knowing. So, what I say about this is one of the things she's missing is that there are stratas of energy. Stratas of energy. Okay? Stratas. You see what I'm talking about. Levels of energy. And what you are unable to see right now, consciousness does reveal as you work on this, on more insights and everything. Yes, it's the old thing Jay put on about God will save us. You know, God's a fantasy. See, I work with a lot of people like this, guys. You know, people will go into my studies and study with me and want to believe that God's just going to take care of everything and in the way in which they want it. That's not going to happen, okay? It's about you shifting to the mind of God more and more because God's all you are. It's about, you know, living from that aspect that you are of the ascended God. But people do all sorts of things with God. Some of these things actually have a religion formed around that. You see? I'm not disparaging religion. Look, I'm for anything that comforts you. I'm for anything that makes your life better. And I am for anything that doesn't hurt other people or animals or anything else. Because I believe in a God of love. Okay. I believe those things, and I support everybody's right to believe anything they want. I'm here for those of you that want to think, want to know something else. That's really all this is about. But consciousness reveals things as you move through it. Reveals things, not only about the world, but about you. That's why it reveals things about the world, because these changes are happening in you. So if somebody doesn't see this, what I said in the beginning was, just keep going, right? I think that, and this is a very confusing article, because in many cases she's talking about apples and oranges. I'm talking about the inner, she's talking about the outer. Show me the money, she says. Show me the evidence, is what she's really saying. Really? Okay, well, you're not going to find it there, kids. You're not going to find it there, but you already know that. Number 7 of her article. Now, these are the 10 things that 10 reasons she doesn't believe in God. Number 7, the complete failure of any sort of supernatural phenomena to stand up to rigorous testing. I love that. Well, that just shows you she doesn't understand this energy, because that's not how this works. As a matter of fact, it's, people really don't understand any of this. They really don't. I remember a client came to me years ago. She came one time because I went after this. And I said, so what have you done for personal growth? Because she was saying, oh, I have been in personal growth my whole life. And her answer was that she goes to a psychic once a week. Well, I just knew right then, God bless her soul, and she was welcome to keep going in that psychic, but I wasn't the person that was supposed to teach her. She was totally in fantasy about everything and taking no personal responsibility for anything, you see. How, if you don't take any personal responsibility for things, are you going to change your life to what you want? You see, you created what you got right now, so let's create something else. That's where the energy is. Even if you think it's just awful, what's the harm in saying, boy, did I goof. All right, let's do something else now. You see? Okay. The complete failure of any sort of supernatural phenomena to stand up to rigorous testing. Something else before I read what she says and talk about it. I remember a television show that came on, 10 or 15 years ago? Could it have been that long? And it was a show about, they would collect psychics. And from, I don't know where. But anyway, they collected these psychics. And then they would do contests, like you would win a car if you guessed where the pearl was under the box, or something like that. I mean, it was a series of tests like that. Guys, that's not what this is about. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's ridiculous. So are all the shows that are on television about ghosts and phenomena. Look, I see people that have gone on from time to time. I do. I see energy. All right? When they want to show them to me, they show them to me. It's nothing scary about it. And it's you traveling to somewhere in your psyche, in this thing, this magical thing called you, that allows you to see them. My dears, it's all so much bull and romanticism. It's crazy. And drama, by the way. Oh yeah, let's not forget. And the drama. But it's not like that at all. I'm told by the dying, I'm told by the energies that have crossed over, that dying is no more important than going from room to room. But for us, it's highly dramatic, right? Why is it highly dramatic? We don't know how to live without this person. I'm not diminishing grief. Oh my God, my whole family's dead. Okay? Almost. Except for some lovely cousins and a divine husband. Okay? But kids, come on. You gotta wake up to this. We're making everything so dramatic and everything terrifying and everything. That's not the way it really is. God is a God of love, and there is peace there beyond all understanding. Okay. She goes on to say, Not all religious and spiritual beliefs have testable claims, but many of them do. Some of them do. Whether it's the power of prayer or faith healing or astrology or life after death, the same pattern is seen. The claims have consistently fallen apart. Jay says, I have this saying, we are the image of God. We are responsible for our actions. God will save us, meaning we are responsible for saving ourselves. That's lovely, Jay. I like that very much. Yes, and Jay has also said, and I missed this one, I'm sorry, Jay, people don't do anything about the reality of the situation. Well, it's because they don't stand in reality many times, my darling. I mean, really. I mean, he's absolutely right. But if you are going to manifest and manifest well, and I've got a whole series on that on this radio show, so by all means, listen to that. We talk about a variety of subjects on all of these shows. But darling, it is about being real, not about being in fantasy about anything, and not about coming from a place of insecurity within the child's mind, trying to create something because you don't believe you can. So you're overcompensating. That's not going to bring anything but more lack, because you're coming from lack. The whole point of all of this, and you've heard me say we've got to learn to work with this energy. The whole point of it is for you to go as high as you can to the mind of God. You say, oh, I can't do that. You can't. When you are the aspect of God. That's all you really are, except for all this fantasy and craziness that we do because of our issues. So, of course, healing and getting us beyond our issues is really important to your spiritual growth and your growth in consciousness. Of course it is. And that's why I say you've got to embrace your humanness, go through your humanness, accept your humanness, see what you did, be totally responsible, and do something else. Because your divinity is in that path. It is a triad here, awareness, to consciousness, to enlightenment. How many times have I been at a party and somebody hears what I do and they go, oh, I don't have any issues. Oh, not me. I had a wonderful childhood. It's not the way it works. Not the way it works. These people are just unaware, totally unaware. I mean, that has to be waked up before you can. Okay. That's where a lot of your insights are about humankind and about how we all are trying in our ways. Okay, she goes on to say, no, I don't think there's anything else to say with that one. Rigorous testing. Rigorous testing. How can you test the inner by outer means? Guys, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to do that. Okay. She says supernatural claims are supported by wishful thinking and confirmation bias, which is our tendency to overemphasize evidence that supports what we believe and discard evidence that contradicts us. And our poor understanding and instincts when it comes to probability, and our tendency to see pattern and intention even where none exists, and a dozen other forms of cognitive bias and weird human brain wiring. Well, you know what? I agree with all that. I do. I agree with all of that because she has no idea what this really is. Here's the thing I want you all to know. And yes, Jay says waking up can be traumatizing. Yeah, because you don't have to relive your past, but you have to go back and clean the dirty room, you see, and see how it all has been wired and how you've made good things bad and bad things good, and how you put it all together in a perfect package that protects you but doesn't get you anywhere. And Jay says, since we have been told what to do since we were an infant. Yeah, there you go. That's right. You're going against all that childhood teaching. Here's what I want you all to know about waking up. You ready? It is quiet. When you get to spiritual surrender, it is quiet and personal. It is part of this journey. It is inevitable. And it is the science we don't know yet. And maybe never will. I happen to think there's too much of God and grace and all of this for us to ever understand. God doesn't ask me to understand it. God just says, do your job with the understanding that I have. Always knowing that I'm open to understanding more. I'm content with that. Aren't you? Oh, and Michelle says, I'm thinking about this. I didn't think of it like this. Thanks. Oh, that's so sweet. I love it when you guys talk together. Oh, and let's see. Jay said, okay. Jay has gone on to say, I have this saying, we are the image of God. We're responsible for our actions. God will save us, meaning we are responsible for saving ourselves. That's absolutely right. It's all energy, guys. Come on. And energy can be shifted. You know, we're all writing a script here. You would never, for anyone you loved, your dogs, your cats, your children, your husband, your mother, anybody you loved, you wouldn't write a bad script for them, would you? But you write one for yourself until you wake up. That's as it should be. But we're supposed to wake up if you're called. I think you all are. Okay. We are now to number 8. The number 8 reason she doesn't believe in God. The slipperiness of religion and spiritual beliefs. Okay. And again, she's saying religious and spiritual. I don't think she knows the difference. She goes on to say, it is a well-established principle in the philosophy of science that if a theory can be supported no matter what possible evidence comes down the pike, it is useless. The theory of gravity, for instance, could be disproven by things suddenly falling up. The theory of evolution could be disproven by finding rabbits in the pre-Cambrian fossil layer, she says. These theories predict that those things won't happen. If they do, the theories go poof. But if your theory of God's existence holds up no matter what happens, whether your friend has cancer, with cancer gets better or dies, whether natural disasters strike big sinful cities or small God-fearing towns, then it's a useless theory with no power to predict or to explain anything. She goes on to say, hardline fundamentalists, for instance, will insist on the unchangeable, perfect truth of the Bible. But when challenged on specific historical and scientific errors, they insist that you're not interpreting those passages correctly. And then she goes on to say, if that book needs interpreting, then how perfect can it be? She goes on to say, if you can't make your case and then stick by it or modify it or let it go, then you don't have a good case. I go back to the book I showed you all last week, The End of Faith by Sam Harris. People are missing what that book's about. Now, Sam Harris writes a very angry treatise for half the book, and he tears every single religion to shreds. To shreds. It's just mind-blowing. You know, I've spent my life not looking at what I didn't believe. I've looked at, okay, what do I believe? Maybe I don't know what I believe yet, and going on that search. All right. Sam Harris has really analyzed what he does not believe. Fascinating, guys. The End of Faith, Sam Harris, fascinating. Very controversial book. Holy Moses, when I mention it now, all my Christian friends have a fit. He's an atheist. They say he's actually not. You know what's so interesting about him? Is halfway in that book, just when you think he's the angriest man you've ever met, halfway in that book, he says the thing that's going to save us, the thing that is true every single time, is consciousness, is what you find on that road. And I think I mentioned this to you all. I happen to believe that whatever you believe should absolutely follow you and be applicable in every situation, no matter what. I was aware when that spiritual awakening happened to me that no matter what happened in life, I know it's part of my path and that God is right there in the middle of everything, whether it hurt or not. It completely shattered, because I'd been working on shattering, my idea that God's there in the good times and not there in the bad times. Every childhood idea I had about any of this went down the toilet. And I was left with a knowing that I have been exploring and embracing and accepting and enjoying ever since. I wish that for you too. Yes, Sam Harris does talk about religion being all about control. Absolutely. I do really encourage. That's an older book, guys, so you can get it on Amazon, a secondhand book for practically nothing. I so encourage you reading that. I really do. I thought it was one of the most fascinating books ever. And he's done so much research. He's a really fascinating man. I really do think a lot of him. But I think because people like Greta don't understand, or maybe not like Greta, don't understand what consciousness is that he's talking about, and are just, by the time they get to that part of the book, so offended by everything he has said, because it attacks what they believe in their childhood religion and everything, that they have mounted a campaign against him, and they completely miss his point, I think. If I've got his point right, Sam Harris, I think so much of you, but I hope I'm helping make your point. That's the way I interpreted it anyway. Guys, it isn't, the only absolute in this world is this energy of God. But it in itself is always moving and growing. And when you're exploring that in you, it's always deepening, changing, and new ideas are coming out and new insights. This is so far beyond religion. Again, I'm delighted that everybody believes in religion, but to me, I think it is quite the starting point for you to see what you really believe beyond what your childhood church is. And I say keep going if that thrills you. I'm delighted by that. But we're supposed to grow. At least I was. And I think you are too. My assumption is that's why you're listening to a show like this, unless you've got your fist in the air saying, damn her, I don't like believing all this. You don't have to, okay? It's just some ideas. You've got to find out what's true for you in every case. And that's God, you see? All right, we're to number 9. These are her 10 reasons she doesn't believe in God. The failure of religion to improve or clarify over time. Guys, this is a personal journey. It's not a religious one. It's about who you are as a spiritual being in physical form. That's what you're exploring, not a religious dogma or phenomena. And also, it's not somebody telling you what to think. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you go out and explore what you think. Here's some ideas. If you're going in any kind of direction, Amit Goswami in his book, The Self-Aware Universe, says something fascinating, and that is it's his version of what I just said to you all earlier. All ascended truth confirms itself. He said all people that are on this path, and he's a physicist, by the way, all reach the same conclusion that I am putting forth right now. Isn't that fascinating? We all reach the same conclusion. But you got to find that out. And you may reach a different conclusion. That's great. He and I don't believe that you will, but go ahead. And yet, there is a great deal of individuality to this, because here comes divine inspiration through each of these people that are opening and making this journey. And so how we use it, whether we are writing about it or putting it forth in our work in physics or our work in spirituality or whatever we're doing it in a very unique way for us. That's the way it's supposed to be, isn't it? And yet our egos say, oh, I don't want to go on any kind of journey because I'm doing great work now. You have no idea until you reach your potential. And the ego child's mind, creating from that, is not your best work. I know that's hard to hear. Good God. That was hard for me to hear when I was younger. That I had not reached the pinnacle yet. When I was honest with myself, it was like, where is that damn pinnacle? I have no idea. And so I just went on the journey to heal me. See what is in that cornfield, is that movie. What was it? Field of Dreams. And I love that. James Earl Jones, his character said, I don't know what's in that cornfield, but I'm going to find out. Yeah? It's kind of the way I felt about all of this. She goes on to say, now we're under the topic. Jay said, question everything. And he also said, why do we worship a deity / figure to lead the sheep people? Well, it's because we only, when we're unaware, we want deities to be just like us. Isn't that more comfortable? Just like us, right? Yeah, God has a nose and red hair and everything. That makes me feel more comfortable. I'm not as worried about the unknown and this vast energy that's really too big for me if I can just believe in my little box. And we make everything like us. Look at Santa Claus. Look at the spirit of Christmas. Look at the spirit of anything. Okay? Right? She goes on to say, we came up with a scientific method, a self-correcting method for understanding the physical world, a method which, over time, with the many fits and starts that accompany any human endeavor, has done an astonishingly good job of helping us perceive and understand the world. Okay. And the scientific method itself is self-correcting. Not only has our understanding of the natural world improved dramatically, our method for understanding it has improved as well. Our understanding of the supernatural world, she says, not so much. Baby, you can't find this with a closed mind. She goes on to say, our understanding of the supernatural world is in the same place it has always been. Yeah, we're all baying at the moon. And you know what? We are. But not all of us. Okay? See, there is a false journey. A journey that doesn't get us anywhere, that just kind of comforts us sometimes. And there's a real thing. And she cannot fathom that there's something beyond. I find that sad. Now, in my work, I see lots of people. I see people that have come from fundamentalist backgrounds. I see people that come from cults. I see people in my practice that have come from no religion at all, and whose fathers and mothers actually pushed it away and were furious if anybody talked to their children that way. I've seen it all. And the interesting, Jay just said The Road Less Traveled by Robert Frost, one of my favorite poems, by the way, and poets. You see, a belief in nothing's a belief in something. But when a door is shut, you never see what that something is going to be on the other side. We never look at energy. We never see the absence of it or the fullness of it according to our understanding. We don't think that way. Why do you think I'm talking to you the way I do right now? People stop too soon, but it isn't their journey, and that I support. Their journey might be to write an article like this so that I can use this way and somebody else can use it to support their beliefs. Great. I'm just supposed to do my job. So here we are. Our understanding of supernatural world, she goes on to say, is in the same place it's always been. Hundreds and indeed thousands of sects, squabbling over sacred texts and spiritual intuitions and which one's the right one. We haven't come to any consensus about what religion best understands the supernatural world. We haven't come up with a method for making that decision. All anyone can do is point to their own sacred texts and their own spiritual intuition, and around in the squabbling circle we go, she says. Well, here we are again, mixing up things. Guys, she's talking about religion. She's using religion and spirituality as quite different things. I am not. They're not the same thing. We're not supposed to, this is a time of individual consciousness. This is what I say in the book. This is what I say to you. Nothing is going to be like it was when you were born, no matter when that was, for the rest of your life and probably the rest of time. You better learn to go with the new energies. You better look within, because that's where the answers are for you, for everyone. They're not in the outer. The outer is falling apart. No faith in the government, no faith in our churches, except our local little church. But as a church in general, no faith in our companies anymore. No faith in the family unit as it was. Guys, we have to move with the times. We cannot be stuck. And yet, we are often stuck. Jay says most people are separate from the God self, and that is true. The article goes on to say, all of which points to religion, not as a perception of a real being or substance. Where does she get this? For heaven's sakes, God is something else. It is not religion, spiritual warfare going on now. Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. It's the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to argue. What do you think will turn us within? Do you think growing up in an environment of peace, harmony, and Christmas every day is going to have us look within? Guys, the dissension is serving a purpose. The upset, COVID, is serving a purpose. Everything is serving a purpose to make us look at the only thing we can look at that might sustain us, which is consciousness, which is God, the real one, beyond what we try to make of it through our excuses and our fantasies and our ego that substitutes things for spirituality and the truth and the true nature of what this is all about. If religion, she goes on to say, were a perception of a real being or substance, our understanding of it would be sharpening, clarifying, and being refined. Well, who's to say it's not? But she's not going to hear about it because that's happening within you. The deepening within you. For heaven's sakes, I mean, I think we have Jesus all wrong, by the way. Really, I do. Well, we'll talk about that sometime. But I think that that's why Jesus disappears for 18 years in the Bible. He wasn't advertising his journey. It was personal. It was internal. It was like yours is. For heaven's sakes. Jay asked a great question, which is, why does trauma wake us up or not? I think trauma sometimes does wake us up. I think that's why all the dissension and the arguments and what we're going through right now. But that's for people who don't listen. If they hurt enough or get sick enough, surely, that's a really good choice to go within. But you don't have to do that, you see. I realized a really long time ago, and this is just my journey, that I wanted to, because I've always known about energy and been sensitive to energy, I want to know as much as I possibly can in this lifetime. I'm going to go as far as I can possibly go. I want to explore not only my potential, but yours. I want to absolutely go on this energetic journey, and until the end of my days, I'm going to be working on this and thinking about it, putting pieces together. Have I experienced trauma in the past? Yeah, here and there. I really have. I hurt like you do. I've grieved. I've done all the things that you have done. But there's no reason when you go on this journey that of studying consciousness that you should hurt. It's kind of like preventive medicine, right? So that when you get to the crises, you have more perspective on the whole. And it's not just about loss anymore, is it? Yes, Jay said, did they say Jesus went to the Far East? Well, there's a rumor about that, but can we prove it? I don't know, There was a book that came out years and years ago. I think it was in the early part of the 20th century. I think it came out in the 20s. I may be wrong about that. And you're interested in talking about Jesus too. Okay. Well, Michelle, let's do that then. All right. Because I'm not here to offend anybody. I think Jesus was an incredible healer. I think he was an incredible avatar. I think he was an incredible everything. But I think what we do is we look at the divinity of Jesus and what he became, and not the man that made the journey to what he became. And Jesus told us, he said that in the Bible, he says that when he is healing people, you will do far better miracles than these. I believe that and you've heard me say this perhaps, that the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, the Trinity that we're taught. The Father is the personal ascended God we are inside, the spark of the aspect of God we are. I think the Holy Ghost is all the things that are part of the oneness of God, with God, but are not us. The car, the tree, the dog, the birds in the sky itself, the cement out there in the driveway, everything that isn't us is the Holy Ghost. It's out, right? The church is God. It's part of the Holy Ghost, the energy of God. But what unites the outer with the inner? Well, everybody says it's Jesus, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, but it's you. The Son is just a metaphor for you. It is the human experience that unites the inner and the outer. When you read Gnostic Gospels, when you read what we know beyond the biblical teachings, you find out that Jesus, there's some references to Jesus being a very angry little boy. Yes, he channeled ascended information. Absolutely did when he was in the temple talking to the rabbis. That's fabulous. Isn't that marvelous? That's marvelous. He had that ability. That's great. But he still was a human little boy. His mother said that she was impregnated by God. And by the way, if you were pregnant out of wedlock when you were little, back in that time, holy Moses, what people must have thought about her, what Jesus must have thought about her. That's a lot of pressure. You're the son of God. Okay, great. It's like being squired for being the president of the United States your whole life. We are missing Jesus because he went away for 18 years wherever he went and whatever methodology he chose, and or various methodologies, and whether he went to India or not, or the Middle East, or traveled, or whatever he did, he came back this divinity that we all talk about. We're missing who he is as his whole life, because he showed us how to do this. That's the significance of this remarkable man. He showed us how to do that. We've distorted it all to hell. I also think that reason that Jesus died on the cross is not because of some destiny, but it was something that they predicted that he chose to believe and to follow through with. Could he have changed it? Yes, I think he could have, but he did not. He sacrificed himself so it would make an impact, possibly, and we'd still be talking about it today. So those are just some of my ideas about this remarkable man. Do I believe in the divinity of him? Yes, but I believe in the divinity of you, and that's why we're talking today. You get it. I'm sure you do. Okay. So I think we've done that subject enough. Let's do number 10, because we've only got 7 minutes left. Another one of her reasons for not believing in God is the complete lack of solid evidence for God's existence. You're either believing in the lack of God or the fullness of God according to your understanding. I'll say that again. God is everything. There is a duality to all of life. You cannot deny it. You can use everything wonderfully, or you can use it to kill somebody. That's just the way it is. There's a duality here. She's missing the duality of God according to our understanding. She goes on to say, this is probably the best argument I have against God's existence. There's no evidence for it. Well, open your eyes. If everything is energy, there's nothing but evidence here. You see? There's nothing but evidence here. What if everything is evidence? Everything is evidence as far as I'm concerned. Jay says, oh, for the tangible God. Yes, there we go. And Judy, oh, hey, darling, I'm so glad you're with us. Martha, you always stir so much thought and new perspectives to contemplate. Thank you. Well, thank you, Judy. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be talking to myself, wouldn't I? So thank you. Thank you for appreciating that. I really do thank you for that, because these are just my ideas. But I'll tell you what is absolutely true for me, and that is I care about people, and I care about you. And if I have some information that has helped me on this journey, if I can put it together in any kind of clear way or dissenting argument like here, then I absolutely want to do that for us. I say again, thank you, sweetie. I say again something that Jay said earlier, which is, we've got to have our minds open. We have to just open the mind. That's the first step. What if there is something beyond that we're not seeing, so we're caught too much in our excuses, in our fantasy, and in our child's mind? Just what if? Just what if? She goes on to say, if there's an argument for religion that's convincing, actually convincing by means of something other than authority, tradition, personal intuition, confirmation bias, fear and intimidation, wishful thinking, or some combination of the above, wouldn't we all know about it? Wouldn't it spread like wildfire? No, it would not. Because we are fearful of anything that isn't tradition. And guys, there are no enlightened traditionalists. I say that each week. There are no enlightened traditionalists, and yet we hold on to things. Think of parenting. I think some of our best parents are the ones that teach up to a certain point and then stand back and let the kid experiment. Does it hurt us as parents to see our children hurt? Absolutely. You bet. But that's a good parent, because they've got to encourage growth in that. You've got it in you. You go see. You find it. It's there. And I think that's what we call God, this energy, does. Everything is in you. Are you going to use it or not? Are you going to question or not? Are you going to go beyond traditional beliefs or not? What are you finding there? I think that's a very loving God that has given us everything. Now let's see what you want to use. Let's see what you're called to. Let's see how you use all this. It's not a test. That's ridiculous. It's if the world is your oyster, what are you going to do? Isn't that a strange remark? Well, anyway, you could sell everything right now and move to France. You don't want to. It's putting you in a different direction. For God's sake, everybody. Yeah, but Jay says too many times we're induced to distractions. Yeah, we're induced into a distraction. So it's absolutely right. We just don't know. Sweetie, we have a marvelous opportunity to find out everything we can about ourselves. Everything we can about ourselves. I think that I'm looking at this other article that I pulled, A Mass Exodus from Christianity is Underway in America. Here's why. It's written by Suzette Lohmeyer and Anna Dean. I think because consciousness is waking. I think that's what this is about. This is the age of individual consciousness. You don't go to a church to find that sometimes. Right? Sometimes you do. To each his own, right? Darlings, I said in the beginning I will be back on January the 8th because next Sunday is Christmas. I don't know when some of you are going to be listening to the show, but for those of you that are listening right now, next Sunday is Christmas, and then we've got New Year's, and I'm going to take those 2 days off to enjoy my family, as I hope you'll be enjoying your family and friends, and making new friends, actually, out there. I hope that these holidays are very special. Can I give you a quick tip in the last minute I've got? Years ago, when I lost my whole family and didn't know any other family, I didn't celebrate Christmas for a while. I didn't celebrate. And I had a friend that was not invited. He was gay. He was not invited to his partner's house because of old prejudices. And he said, I just enjoy that day so much. I cook for me. I eat for me. I wrap little presents up under the tree for me. I give myself something to do and learn all day long. And it's the best day in the world. And that really changed me. I realized, yes, we've got to learn in our emotional maturity to not only accept what is, but to do for ourselves and make ourselves happy. And as you contemplate the holidays and go into them and the new year, I hope you will too. You're worth doing for, my darlings. You are. And Jay says 2023, maybe waking up from a dreary dream. We're not in Kansas anymore. Yeah. Guys, have a good one. Make it a good one for yourselves, please. God's right there in the middle of the fine meal and the wonderful little gifts you give yourself and who you really are. Okay? Thank you, Michelle. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you. Happy Hanukkah to everyone, and God bless you. Take care of yourselves now. I'll see you on January 8th. Bye-bye.